The Occult World by Alfred Percy Sinnett. Chapter 1. Ancient Esotericism and the Superiority of Occult Science over Modern Discovery. There exists, even now, a distinct school of philosophy regarding which contemporary culture has become altogether oblivious. Traces of this system are discernible within those ancient philosophies known to all cultivated men. Yet, these remains are scarcely more intelligible than the shards of forgotten statuary. Indeed, they are less so. For while we comprehend the human anatomy and can mentally restore missing limbs to a mutilated torso, we can supply no speculative signification to the verities descending to us from Plato or Pythagoras, verities which indicate, to those possessing the key to their import, the esoteric wisdom of the antique world. Collateral illumination, notwithstanding, may permit the decipherment of such phraseology, and a profound intellectual recompense awaits those prepared to undertake this investigation. For, however paradoxical the assertion may initially appear, modern metaphysics, and to a considerable degree modern physical science, have for centuries been fumbling in obscurity after knowledge which occult philosophy has possessed in plenary abundance throughout the ages. Through a concatenation of fortuitous circumstances, I have ascertained that this is indeed the reality. I have established contact with individuals who are the inheritors of a wisdom regarding the mysteries of nature and humanity far superior to that which modern culture has thus far evolved. My present ambition is to delineate the contours of this knowledge, to chronicle with precision the experimental evidences I have acquired demonstrating that occult science endows its adepts with a mastery over natural forces transcending that possessed by conventional physicists, and to articulate the rationale for according the utmost deference to the theories maintained by occult science regarding the constitution and destiny of the human soul. Naturally, contemporaries will be reluctant to credit the notion that any knowledge worthy of contemplation exists beyond the luminous epicenter of Western culture. Modern science has achieved magnificent results through the method of open inquiry, and remains highly intolerant of the hypothesis that individuals who ever attained authentic erudition, whether in the sciences or metaphysics, could have been content to conceal their illumination. Consequently, the prevailing tendency has been to assume that the occult philosophers of antiquity, Egyptian priests, Chaldean magi, Essenes, Gnostics, theurgic Neoplatonists, and the rest, who guarded their knowledge, must have adopted such a policy to disguise the paucity of their actual understanding. Obscurity could only have been cherished by charlatans desiring to obfuscate. This conclusion is excusable from the modern perspective, yet it has engendered an impression within the popular consciousness that the ancient mystics have been thoroughly scrutinized and found to possess negligible insight. This impression is categorically erroneous. Savants of former eras labored in seclusion, and rather than publishing their discoveries, imparted them clandestinely to carefully selected disciples. Their motives for adopting such a protocol are readily comprehensible, even if the merits of that policy remain a subject for debate. In any event, their doctrine has not been consigned to oblivion. It has been transmitted via secret initiation to men of our own era. While its methods and practical achievements remain guarded in their custody, it is possible for any patient and earnest student of the subject to verify that these methods are of supreme efficacy, and these achievements far more admirable than any yet attributed to the credit of modern science. For the secrecy in which these operations have been shrouded has never concealed their existence, and it is only in our present age that this fact has been forgotten. Formerly, at grand public solemnities, the initiates manifested the powers with which their comprehension of natural laws endowed them. We negligently presume that the narratives of such exhibitions describe performances of magic. Having determined that magic is non-existent, we conclude that the narratives must be spurious and the persons referred to impostors. Yet, assuming that the magic of antiquity was simply the science of the magi of learned men, there remains no magic in the modern connotation within the matter. And presuming that such science, even in ancient times already the product of eons of study, had advanced in certain directions further than our comparatively nascent modern science has yet attained, it is reasonable to conclude that certain phenomena associated with ancient mysteries may have been strictly scientific experiments, though they resemble displays of magic in description, and would appear as such to us now were they to be repeated. Upon that hypothesis, modern sagacity, applying modern knowledge to the subject of ancient mysteries, may be merely modern folly deriving erroneous conclusions from modern ignorance. However, there is no necessity to formulate conjectures in this matter. The facts are accessible if they are pursued in the proper manner, and the facts are as follows. The wisdom of the ancient world, science and religion amalgamated, physics and metaphysics combined, was a reality, and it endures. It is this which shall be designated in these pages as occult philosophy. It was already a comprehensive system of knowledge, cultivated in seclusion and transmitted to initiates for ages, before its professors performed experiments in public to awe the populace in Egypt and Greece. Adepts of occultism in the present day are capable of executing similar experiments and of exhibiting results which demonstrate them to be immeasurably further advanced than conventional modern science in the comprehension of the forces of nature. Furthermore, they inherit from their illustrious predecessors a science which addresses not solely physics, but also the constitution and capacities of the human soul and spirit. Modern science has discovered the circulation of the blood. Occult science understands the circulation of the life principle. Modern physiology concerns itself with the body alone. Occultism treats of the soul as well, not as the subject of nebulous religious rhapsodies, but as a concrete entity possessing properties that may be examined in conjunction with, or apart from, those of the corporeal frame. It is chiefly in the East, in India and adjacent territories, that occultism is maintained. It is in India that I have encountered it, and this treatise is composed to describe the experiences I have been privileged to undergo, and to disseminate the knowledge I have acquired. My narrative of events must be preceded by certain additional preliminary elucidations, lest it prove unintelligible. The continuity of occultism as practiced throughout the ages must be borne in mind to account for the magnitude of its organization, and for the astounding revelation that sequestered Orientals may comprehend more regarding electricity than Faraday, and more regarding physics than Tyndall. The culture of Europe has been cultivated by Europeans for themselves within the past several centuries. The culture of occultists is the product of vast epochs long anterior to these, when civilization flourished in the East, and during a trajectory which has propelled occultism within the domain of physical science far beyond the point we have attained. Physical science has remained merely an object of secondary importance for occultism. Its primary energies have been devoted to metaphysical inquiry, and to the latent psychological faculties within man, faculties which, in their development, enable the occultist to obtain concrete experimental knowledge concerning the soul's condition of extracorporeal existence. There exists, therefore, something far exceeding a mere antiquarian interest in the identification of the occult system with the doctrines of the initiated orders throughout the ages of the world's history. Indeed, through this identification, we are presented with the key to the philosophy of religious development. Occultism is not merely an isolated revelation demonstrating that humanity possesses specific dominions over nature, capacities which the more restricted examination of nature from a purely materialistic perspective has failed to cultivate, but is, rather, an illumination cast upon all prior spiritual speculation of merit, serving to coalesce systems that appear ostensibly divergent. It bears a relation to spiritual philosophy analogous to that which Sanskrit bears to comparative philology. It constitutes a common repository of philosophical roots. Consequently, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, and Egyptian theology are united within a singular lineage of ideation. As occultism is neither a novel invention nor a specific sect, the adherents of no denomination can afford to disregard the collateral illumination it projects upon those conceptions of nature and human destiny which their respective faiths may have induced them to formulate. Indeed, occultism must be recognized by any individual who takes the pains to clearly contemplate the problems it addresses as a study of the most sublime import to every person desirous of living a life commensurate with their human station in creation, and who can comprehend the ethical implications of positive knowledge concerning their own post-mortem survival. It is one matter to follow the guidance of a nebulous impression that an existence beyond the grave, should one exist, might somehow be ameliorated by abstinence from transgression in this sphere. It is distinctly another to realize, provided such can be demonstrated, that the life beyond must, with the inevitability of a mathematical sum composed of positive and negative quantities, constitute the final expression of the utilization of opportunities in the present existence. I have posited that the striking significance of occult knowledge hinges upon the manner in which it affords precise and experimental intelligence regarding spiritual matters which, under all other systems, must remain the subjects of mere speculation or blind religious faith. It may be further asserted that occultism demonstrates that the harmony and seamless continuity of nature, so observable in physics, extend to those operations of nature concerned with the phenomena of metaphysical existence. Before approaching an exposition of the conclusions regarding the nature of man reached by occult philosophy, it is perhaps distinctively worthwhile to address an objection that the reader may raise at the very threshold of the subject. How is it that conclusions of such profound weight have been maintained as the clandestine property of a jealous body of initiates? Is it not a law of progress that truth asserts itself and courts the open air and light? Is it reasonable to suppose that the greatest of all truths, the fundamental basis of veracity concerning man and nature, should fear to reveal itself? With what objective could the ancient professors of, or proficients in, occult philosophy withhold the priceless treasures of their researches from the public domain? It is not within my province to defend the extreme tenacity with which proficients in occultism have hitherto not only excluded the world from the details of their knowledge, but have seemingly left it in ignorance that such knowledge exists at all. It suffices here to indicate that it would be imprudent to close our eyes to a revelation that may now be partially conceded, simply because we are piqued by the conduct of those who, having been in a position to proffer it previously, elected not to do so. Nor would it be sagacious to assert that the reticence of the occultists thus far discredits any information we may now be afforded regarding their acquirements. When the sun is manifestly shining, it is futile to claim that its light is discredited by the behavior of the barometer on the preceding day. In discussing the acquirements of occultism, I am compelled to deal with facts that have actually transpired, and nothing can discredit that which is known to be true. Doubtless, it will prove worthwhile subsequently to examine the motives which have rendered the occultists of all ages so profoundly reserved. Furthermore, there may be more to be said in justification of the course pursued than is visible at a cursory glance. Indeed, the reader will not proceed far in an examination of the nature of the powers which proficients in occultism actually possess without perceiving that it is supremely desirable to withhold the practical exercise of such faculties from the world at large. Yet, it is one matter to deny mankind generally the key which unlocks the mystery of occult power. It is quite another to withhold the fact that there exists a mystery to unlock. However, further discussion of that question at this juncture would be premature. Suffice it for the present to note that secrecy is, after all, not absolute if external students of the subject are enabled to ascertain as much regarding the mysteries as I shall have cause to relate. Manifestly, a great deal remains behind the veil, but, at all events, much is to be acquired by inquirers who will commence their labors in the correct manner. Furthermore, that which may now be learned is no novel revelation partially extended to the outer world for the first time through mere caprice. In former historical epochs, the world at large possessed a far more extensive understanding of the nature of occultism than is currently possessed by the modern West. The bigotry of modern civilization, rather than the jealousy of the occultist, is to blame if the European races are, at this moment, more generally ignorant of the extent to which psychological research has been advanced than were the Egyptian populace in antiquity, or the people of India in the present day. Regarding the latter, amongst whom the veracity of the theory just suggested can easily be tested, one will find the vast majority of Hindus perfectly convinced of the truth of the principal statements I am about to advance. They do not generally or readily discourse upon such subjects with Europeans, as the latter are so prone to vapid derision of views they do not comprehend or to which they do not already subscribe. The Indian native is exceptionally reticent in the presence of such ridicule. Yet, this does not affect in the slightest degree the beliefs which reside in his own mind, founded upon the fundamental teachings he has invariably received, and, in many instances, upon fragmentary experiences he may himself have encountered. The Hindus are thus cognizant, as a collective body, of the fact that there exist individuals who, by entire devotion to certain modes of existence, acquire unusual powers of a nature that Europeans would, quite erroneously, term supernatural. They are intimately familiar with the notion that such persons lead secluded lives, inaccessible to common curiosity, yet remain approachable by fit and determined candidates seeking admission to occult training. Inquire of any cultivated Hindu whether he has ever heard of Mahatmas and Yogvidya or occult science, and the probability is overwhelming that he has, and, unless he happens to be one of the hybrid products of Anglo-Indian universities, that he fully believes in the reality of the powers ascribed to yoga. It does not follow that he will immediately answer in the affirmative to a European posing the question. He will likely assert the precise opposite, stemming from the apprehension of which I have previously spoken. Yet, if one presses the inquiries with persistence, one will discover the truth, as I did, for example, in the case of a highly intelligent English-speaking native vakil holding an influential position and maintaining constant relations with high European officials during the past year. Initially, my new acquaintance met my inquiries regarding his familiarity with these subjects with a stoic expression of complete nescience and an explicit denial of any knowledge whatsoever concerning my meaning. It was not until our second private interview, conducted within my own residence, that he gradually came to perceive my sincerity and my personal acquaintance with the principles of yoga. Subsequently, he quietly unveiled his genuine reflections upon the matter, demonstrating not only that he had fully comprehended my earlier allusions, but also that he possessed a wealth of information regarding occurrences of an occult or ostensibly supernatural character, many of which had been witnessed within his own lineage and others by his own faculties. The significance of this lies in the realization that Europeans remain unjustified in attributing the absolute and total ignorance characterizing modern Western society regarding these matters to any alleged jealousy on the part of the occultists. The Occident has been preoccupied with the enterprise of material advancement to the utter exclusion of psychological evolution. Perchance it has served the world best by confining itself to its specific domain. Yet, be that as it may, it bears the sole responsibility if this concentration of purpose has resulted in a species of retrogression within other spheres of development. Jacques, a French author who has treated extensively the various phases of Spiritism in the Orient, was addressed by an individual whose language unmistakably betokened the status of an adept. You have studied physical nature, and through her laws you have achieved marvelous results. Steam, electricity, etc. For 20,000 years or more, we have studied the intellectual forces. We have discovered their laws, and we obtain, by compelling them to act either in isolation or in concert with matter, phenomena far more astonishing than your own. Jacques adds, "We have witnessed things such as one dares not describe for fear of leading his readers to doubt his intelligence. Yet we have nonetheless witnessed them." Occult phenomena must not be conflated with the phenomena of spiritualism. The latter, whatever their nature, are manifestations that mediums can neither control nor comprehend in a strictly scientific sense. The former represent the achievements of a conscious, living operator who fully comprehends the laws with which he engages. If such achievements appear miraculous, the fault lies solely in the ignorance of the observer. The spiritualist is perfectly aware, notwithstanding the ignorant mockery of outsiders content to deride without understanding the object of their laughter, that diverse occurrences distinctly beyond the range of physical causation constantly take place for those inquirers who pursue them with sufficient diligence. Yet, he has never been capable of doing more than framing hypotheses regarding the hidden laws of nature by virtue of which these events are produced. Having adopted a certain hypothesis in the first instance for lack of a superior alternative, and working ostensibly upon this premise, he has constructed such an elaborate edifice of theory around the facts that he is exceedingly reluctant to tolerate the interposition of a new hypothesis that would necessitate a revision of his conclusions in several vital particulars. There will be no method of evading this necessity, however, if he belongs to that order of inquirers who care rather to ascertain they have grasped the truth than to fortify a doctrine they have espoused for better or for worse. Broadly speaking, there exists scarcely a single phenomenon of spiritualism that adepts in occultism cannot reproduce through the force of their own will, supplemented by a comprehension of the resources of nature. As will be demonstrated when I proceed to a direct narrative of my personal experiences, I have witnessed some of the most familiar phenomena of spiritualism produced by purely human agency. The primordial spirit rap, which heralded the mightier phenomena of spiritualism, has been manifested for my edification in a countless variety of ways, and under conditions that render the hypothesis of any spiritual agency in the matter wholly preposterous. I have observed flowers descending from the blank ceiling of a chamber under circumstances providing practical assurance that no spiritual agency was at work, yet occurring in a manner as absolutely supernatural, in the sense of being produced without the aid of any material appliances, as any of the floral showers by which certain spiritual mediums are attended. I have repeatedly received direct writing, produced upon paper within sealed envelopes of my own provision, which was created or precipitated by a living human correspondent. I possess information which, though secondary, is highly trustworthy, concerning a great variety of other familiar spiritual phenomena produced in the identical manner by human adepts in occultism. However, it is not my present objective to wage war upon spiritualism. The announcements I must articulate will, indeed, likely be received with greater readiness among spiritualists than within the outer circles of the mundane world, for the spiritualists are at all events aware, from their own experience, that the orthodox science of the day has not uttered the final word concerning mind and matter, whereas the orthodox outsider obstinately clings to a denial of facts when they are of a nature he foresees himself unable to elucidate. As the facts of spiritualism, though accessible to any honest investigator who seeks them, are not of a category that one may carry about and cast into the faces of pragmatic skeptics, these latter individuals are enabled to maintain their professions of incredulity without the folly of their position becoming obvious to one another, plain as it remains to the initiated. However, although the ordinary scientific mind will thus be reluctant to admit either the trustworthiness of my testimony or the conceivability of my explanations, it may allay certain hostile prejudices to clarify at the outset that occult science deals with no conjecture concerning the post-mortem intervention of human beings in the affairs of this world. Its methods are as precise and its mental discipline as rigid as those of the laboratory or the university lecture hall. By uniting with theosophic research, spiritualism might guard itself against all those hasty inferences that have done so much to turn large sections of cultivated society against it. And if they will but take the trouble to approach the subject from the vantage of occult science, students of physical nature will be enabled at last to handle the phenomena of spiritualism freely, to consider them apart from the theories to which they have prematurely given rise, and, thus relieved of the repugnance they currently harbor, to bring them within the domain of that which they will eventually and willingly recognize as true scientific generalizations. Chapter 2. The Spiritual Faculties of Adepts and the Rigorous Evolution of the Neophyte. The powers with which occultism endows its adepts encompass, primarily, a dominion over diverse forces in nature concerning which conventional science remains wholly ignorant, and through the agency of which an adept may sustain converse with any fellow adept, irrespective of the terrestrial intervals that may intervene between them. This psychological telegraphy functions entirely independently of any mechanical conditions or apparatus whatsoever. Furthermore, the clairvoyant faculties of the adept are of such perfection and completeness that they constitute a species of omniscience regarding mundane affairs. For the ordinary mortal, the body acts as the prison of the soul. We perceive merely that which passes before its windows. We can take cognizance only of that which is conveyed within its bars. However, the adept has discovered the key to this incarceration and may emerge from it at his pleasure. It is no longer a prison for him, but merely a dwelling. In other words, the adept possesses the capacity to project his soul outward from his body to any location he desires with the rapidity of thought. The entire edifice of occultism, from foundation to pinnacle, is so utterly alien to ordinary conceptions that it is difficult to determine how to commence an explication of its contents. How might one describe a calculating engine to an audience unfamiliar with the simplest mechanical contrivances and possessing no knowledge of arithmetic? Consequently, the highly cultured classes of modern Europe, regarding the achievements of occultism, stand, despite the perfection of their literary scholarship and the exquisite precision of their attainments in their own departments of science, in a position of absolute ignorance concerning the rudiments of the subject, knowing nothing whatsoever of the capacities of the soul as distinguished from the combined capacities of body and soul. The occultists have devoted themselves chiefly to that study for ages, They have accomplished results in connection with it that are absolutely bewildering in their magnificence. But when the prosaic intelligence is suddenly introduced to some of these, it is staggered and feels itself transported into a world of miracle and enchantment. Upon charts that depict the current of history, the nations inevitably intermingle. Do you want access to this and all the complete audiobooks on the channel, plus the ebook version? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code in the left corner of the screen to access our library, where you can listen to your favorite esoteric books without ad interruptions, lock your screen, or use other apps while the narration plays, and even download the ebook version to follow along as you listen. Listen on your computer via web browser, or download the app from the Play Store. After subscribing, you will receive an email with your login details, password, and step-by-step instructions on how to access the books through the Hotmart app.